I'll call this meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a request to over to Saturday for Boston firefighters?
Of course. Okay, thank you. We'll begin with the approving of the minutes from March 24th, 2014.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 24th, 2014.
Second?
Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I will abstain because I was not here. The next item that we have on the agenda is appointments. I believe the only appointment that we have is Marcia Breen to the Cable Committee. It's a one-year term that expires June 30th, 2014.
I'll make a motion to appoint Marcia Green to the Cable Committee to expire June 30th, 2014.
Second.
Okay, and we can vote. Are there any comments, concerns? Okay. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item we have on the agenda is our response to the March 29th special town meeting, including taking actions necessitated by the outcome of that special town meeting. As you may or may not be aware, all of the warrant articles passed at the special town meeting, including the override, as well as the school's requests. So later on, actually next, we'll be addressing those ballot questions that are necessary because of the yes votes at the special town meeting. Does anyone have, this was kind of more as a place setter in case the override was a no, who would be able to move forward, but does anybody have, we'll get into the ballot questions in a moment, but does anybody have any questions? Yes.
The law requires the Board of Selectmen to vote by at least a 2/3 majority to approve Article 1. So, and then you do have the copies of the ballot questions, which you have to agree to also in order to be on we have 35 days, and it's the May 5th town election that these questions would be, that ballot would be the ballot that they would be on.
Okay. So if we vote these today, we'll make sure to get those sent right off first thing tomorrow. Are there any questions or concerns?
I mean, we can vote, it doesn't, and I don't know if it's the appropriate place to discuss it, but I think we need to discuss the cuts and the spending freeze, and because I really think all of that needs to stay in place. Even though the override passed at town meeting, it hasn't passed at the ballot yet. So I think we need to keep all of that spending and cuts still in place so that we don't.
Mr. Chairman, I can comment on that also. I spoke with the Director of Accounts for the Department of Revenue in Boston today, Jerry Perry, and we talked about Plan A and Plan B. Plan A is if the override is approved. Plan B, if it's not, and basically the state take over. And he said if the town is unable to solve the budget deficit on its own, the state would intervene, but the state would be unwilling to float a loan of $505,000 that the state would expect the town to contribute to some extent to reducing the deficit. And he said that he would highly recommend that the cuts that were established by the Board of Selectmen on January 27th be maintained in place, just in case, because the state, and he'd have a tough time with the legislature as well, in getting, in effect, a state bailout by way of a loan for all of it.
So that is something that we should probably definitely keep in mind then moving forward, just until we know the outcome of that.
So that's,
Yep. Okay. If there's nothing else, We can move on to the election ballot. This is for the May 5th.
We need to vote to approve this article, right?
Oh,
Two-thirds vote required.
So I'll make a motion that we accept Article 1 and move it on to the ballot.
Second?
I think we should read Article 1.
well, I was going to do it as part of the election packet. It's in,
Oh, okay.
it's one of the ballot questions on the,
So we're gonna reread Article 1?
what would you rather, are we approving the ballot question or the actual Article 1?
You're actually giving the selectmen's approval and support for Article 1.
Okay, so then we can go ahead.
Two-thirds vote required.
Okay. So Article 1 reads, to see if the town will vote to assess an additional $505,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding the municipal government for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2013, or take any other action relative thereto. Oh, and here's the actual motion as it was read. On a motion duly made and seconded, the town voted that an additional $505,000 be raised in fiscal year 2014 real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding the municipal government in accordance with the appropriations voted by the town at the May 14th, 2013 annual town meeting for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2013, provided, however, that this vote shall not take effect unless or until the town votes by ballot to accept this amount from the limitations on taxes set forth in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21CI, Proposition 2.5, so-called. Do I have a motion that we approve?
So,
Yeah,
Article
Doug,
one.
Doug.
Yeah, okay. Is there a second?
Second? Yeah, I second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If not, Julie,
yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Is there any other vote required on any of the other articles?
You have to vote to put the ballot questions on the ballot.
Okay. So on the election warrant that we'll be voting today, as the town administrator expressed, because this needs to be voted today at this meeting if we are to get this on the May 5th ballot. So I will read this quickly, if that's okay, into the record, and then we can move forward with voting as to whether or not to place the ballot questions on the ballot. To either of the constables of the town of Templeton and said county, greetings in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the several precincts of the town of Templeton, county of Worcester, qualified to vote in town elections, to meet in their respective precincts at the places designated and appointed by the selectmen, to wit, Narragansett Regional Middle School, back entrance to gymnasium, 460 Baldwinville Road, Baldwinville, Massachusetts, on Monday, the 5th day of May, next at 11 o'clock a.m. to bring in their votes to the election officers on one ballot as follows. 2 members, Board of Selectmen, 3 years. 1 member, Board of Assessors, 3 years. 1 member, Board of Health, 3 years. 1 member, Light and Water Commission, 3 years. 1 moderator, 1 year. 1 member, Cemetery Commission, 3 years. 1 member, Community Preservation Committee, 3 years. 1 member, Sewer Commission, 3 years. 1 member, Planning Board, 3 years. 2 members, Narragansett Regional School District Committee, Templeton, 3 years, and 1 member, Narragansett Regional School District Committee, Phillipston, 3 years. The polls will open at 11 a.m. and be closed at 7 p.m. Those positions are subject to the approval and confirmation of their accuracy by the town clerk. Ballot question 1, shall the town of Templeton be allowed to assess an additional $505,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding the municipal government in accordance with the appropriations voted by the town at the May 14th, 2013 annual town meeting for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2013? Yes, no. Ballot question 2, shall the town of Templeton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2 so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay for the costs of the feasibility study schematic design work ahead for the Templeton Center Elementary School located at 17 South Road in Templeton, Massachusetts, including all costs incidental or related thereto? Yes, no. Ballot question 3, shall the treasurer who is appointed by the Board of Selectmen be authorized to act as collector? Yes, no. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof in each precinct, excuse me, namely at the post office in Templeton, the post office in East Templeton, the post office in Baldwinville, and at Cody's Market in Otter River, and the town office buildings located at 4 Elm Street in Baldwinville and at 360 Patriots Road in Templeton, and by delivering a copy to each of the precinct clerks 7 days at least before the time of holding said meeting, and by causing notice of the same to be published once in the Gardner News, a newspaper published in said county in the city of Gardner. Hereof, fail not and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to each precinct clerk 7 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Given under our hands this 31st day of March in the year AD 2014, to be signed by the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Should it be 690?
Yeah, 690, not 360.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read that incorrectly. 690.
690.
Yeah.
We don't have, we're doing the voting in the middle school and not the high school? I think that's incorrect.
Yeah.
We haven't done voting in the middle school, and so I believe that that's wrong,
Yeah.
Should be high school.
So we'll
right?
change that.
Unless that got changed for whatever reason, that's wrong. So that has to be fixed, right?
Correct.
Well, unless somebody changed it, I don't know.
Because that's what I thought, too, there was gymnasium until further notice.
Right, but if we give the wrong address, then,
Just one thing, these ballot questions were reviewed as to proper form by town council.
that was my next question.
Yes.
Do you have a dollar amount on the school one? I don't think I heard it. We're not doing a dollar amount?
I had the dollar amounts in the questions as I drafted them up. He took it out.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of,
Town council.
For the feasibility study, they don't?
Well, there is a dollar amount for ballot question 1,
yeah,
505.
it's the town's override. I'm
Right, but
questioning the
not
school
for, but
ballot.
he's saying, no.
I mean,
How much is it
that's
going
kind
to
of open-ended.
Well, it would have to match what was approved at the town meeting. So it couldn't be for anything more than $500,000, but it could be for less.
But the people who didn't come to town meeting, who
Right.
don't know what
Yeah.
that amount is, are gonna say no, because it could be for $1 million for all they know.
If,
So,
I'm sure that that number could be put back in
Okay.
there. I think what he tried to do was cut back on the verbiage so it would be easier for the voter to read. Because I had more information in those articles. If you want, I'll just go get the article as I prepared it, and you can modify it.
Yes.
I believe in the past, we've had this discussion before, and I think it's between an override and a capital debt exclusion. The school is a capital debt exclusion, so I think we were told that you can't put the money into it, even though it makes no sense. But for the override, you have to put the dollar amount in. That's
So it is
what I was told.
He is correct.
It might be
That's-
worth just getting a clarification, but I do believe that. I've heard that before also.
I think that's confusing.
Yeah, we could,
It is.
I would assume that he's correct, because I had the number in there that was basically the way this played out. The school department sent the article over, and they sent, actually, they sent a motion, and they sent a synopsis. And what I did was, I simply utilized most of their language, all of their language in the article, although we had to change the borrowing from borrowing by the Narragansett Regional School System to, it's actually a town borrowing, which we changed that. But other than that, we didn't change their language. And so when I
It's gonna be really
drafted the
confusing.
ballot question, I used their language plus the number that they used, and he took it out.
we could perhaps vote to approve it contingent upon confirmation from the town council that that should be removed, just to be 100. So when people ask, because I know people will complain about that, we can say, double checked, definitely
has to
can't
be
be in there.
fixed anyway.
Right, and then we'll also, Julie, if
I think
if
the
you're willing
address is
to.
different also.
Oh, is the address
The whole thing
different?
is different.
Yeah.
The whole address is different.
So we can perhaps if,
We have to come back and sign.
no, we could just vote today with the, to have the language corrected. and-
To have the
yeah.
language corrected and the questions answered, and then,
And then vote yes,
Yeah.
tonight
Right.
contingent upon those things being changed.
just, yeah,
I mean, because we all know what it should be.
right. We know it's supposed to be at the high school gym, not the middle school gym. So,
And same with the question, the answer is the answer, so.
right.
Do I have a second then for that motion? Did we have a second?
don't think it was.
Say, second.
Okay. Any comment? Yes.
Can you read the one about the treasurer and the collector?
Sure, that's a quick one, yeah. Ballot question 3, shall the treasurer who is appointed by the Board of Selectmen be authorized to act as collector?
Just to comment on that as
Sure.
well. I had in there the language that the advisory committee provided, because they're the one that sponsored this, and it referred both to the treasurer acting as collector and the assistant treasurer acting as assistant collector. He took it out. The attorney took it out. So,
Because you're combining that job, right?
Yeah.
That
Correct.
kind of sounds like you're just letting the one do it for now, yeah, or, I don't know.
that's the revision of the language of the advisory board by town council.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions about the ballot?
He'll tell you that he's been doing this for 40 years. He's a graduate of Harvard Business School, or Harvard Law School, so who am I to question?
If there's no further discussion, we will vote to post the warrant and the ballot questions. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay. The next item that we have on the agenda is the status of the tax rate. Mr. Town Administrator, if you would.
The tax rate for fiscal 14 cannot be established until we have the vote on the override. If approved on May 5th, we will have a tax classification hearing, which is required, and the setting of the tax rate by the Board of Selectmen on May 6th. In my discussion today with the Department of Revenue, they will expedite certification of our tax rate so that we can send out tax bills towards the 9th of May. That's very important because without having collected taxes in the 3rd and 4th quarters, I was informed today by the new interim town accountant that we have a cash flow problem, meaning we're low. And the note that was the tax anticipation note that was issued in January comes due on May 15th. That's for $2.650 million. He is in touch with the bank, the First Southwest Bank, and he will recommend to the selectmen that the note be rolled over. And the selectmen must vote on that, and we'll probably bring that in at the next meeting of the board, although we don't really have to have a decision until mid-May. Roll the note over and perhaps add to it with the proviso that the state regulations require that any tax anticipation or revenue anticipation notes that are issued by any city or town must be discharged by the end of the fiscal year. So here's where we are. We have a $2.65 million note that will need to be rolled over in order to be able to pay bills between now and the end of the year. He may have to add $400,000 or $500,000 to that note. That note has to be paid off by June 30th. The way we can pay off the note is to actually collect taxes for the 3rd and 4th quarters of this year. So backing up, the strategy is after the 5th, if Plan A goes into effect, we will have ahead of time scheduled a tax classification hearing before the Board of Selectmen to set the tax rate. We'll get quick approval by the Department of Revenue, send out tax bills towards May 13th or something along those lines, so we can get tax dollars in the door before the end of the fiscal year and pay off the note. some other wrinkles here. Because he's running short on cash, we talked today about some of the most important needs. One of them is that the town will have to pay $1.3 million in the school assessment between now and the end of the year. That assessment is $451,000 per month, since we pay it every month now. Secondly, there's a payroll of $1.2 million that has to be covered between now and June the 30th. So you can add those numbers together and you get $2.5 million. And that's the level of the note that we currently have, or slightly under the note that we currently have. There will be some other incidental expenses to get through this year. And so we're going to have to take action there so that this cash flow problem can be addressed. Good news is that if everything plays out and we send out tax bills and get some money in, then we can cover these obligations. I have to mention also, as I did in the message I sent to the selectmen, that the accountant is also going to ask for a short-term loan from the sewer department. Rather than take it from a bank and pay interest, we would certainly take out a short-term loan with paper guarantees to the sewer department and pay that back before the end of the fiscal year. And I believe he is also going to ask the school department to defer 1 month's assessment payment, which would be $451,000, to help us cope with the cash flow issue between now and the end of the year. None of this is really good news, but it's what has to be done. I don't think there's no other choices here.
Thank you very much. And I know, excuse me, that we've had this discussion before, and I'm preaching to the choir, but I think whoever is on this board, and when we roll around to the late summer and whatnot, this board's focus really needs to be on making sure this does not happen again, that we are late with the tax rate. This is now the second year in a row that we have. Obviously, last year was not as bad because we were able to get tax bills out before the TAN came due. But we just simply cannot be in this position again next year when the town is already just about broke. To pay interest on these tax anticipation notes is it's just not illogical or financially responsible. I mean, it is what it is. We have to do what we have to do because otherwise we'd have no money to run anything, to keep the lights on, or pay anyone. So it's a necessary evil when we're in this situation, but I think every effort should be made. And hopefully with our new financial team in place, the new town administrator, whoever that will be, will make sure that that is a priority to make sure that we are not sitting here in almost April wondering when tax bills will be out, or knowing that they won't be out until at least May. So is there any discussion on the status of the tax rate? There's no action that we have to take today. This was for informational purposes. Yes?
If we're asking the sewer department to give us a short-term loan, why would we not want to also approach the light company where they have the crown jewel of the town, if they could help out? Just to see what their reaction, I can tell you what they're going to say, just to see their reaction and how they
Happy to do it.
try to help out.
This is what Matt Angel, our newly appointed town accountant, suggested today. And he gave me a report today. He's been on the job 1 day, and he gave me a written report, which basically says what I've just said to you tonight. We had a discussion this afternoon, and he came back at the end of the day and gave me this to pass out to the Board of Selectmen. So I'll talk with him about that. I have no problem in going to see the commissioners over there and asking for we have already teed up a discussion on trying to establish a formula-based so-called pilot payment in lieu of taxes. That's been put aside for now, but I did meet with the director over there and suggested that a meeting with the commissioners would be something that would be worth doing, that I would want to do, to talk about that issue. No problem in also talking about a loan. It makes more sense. When the town will pay $4,400 to discharge the $2.65 million note. If we roll it over, it's another $4,400. No reason to pay that money if we can take loans from other municipal departments. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some skepticism, but I think we'd be certainly willing to give them paper pledges, and that it would be repaid properly. And we can do that if we get tax money in. In addition to all of this, the letter that was received from the Department of Revenue on Friday last, detailing free cash, pointed out that part of the reason why our free cash went down from what we expected is that there's $323,000 in uncollected taxes. And we haven't even billed the last 2 quarters. So tax money here we're facing the downstream problems of not having collected taxes.
And I know that the school was mentioned as well, and while obviously we're not the school committee, I am hoping that with a ballot question on the ballot, the school would be looking for ways to harbor positive feelings, between the town and the school, and I think that this would be a good opportunity. Obviously, I can't speak for them or on their behalf, but I think personally that it would be politically a wise decision to maybe help the town out in any way that they can moving forward, since they do have that ballot question on the agenda. So, is there anything else on this? Yes.
Is there any anticipated amount that will be billed on taxes for the quarters coming?
I can speak to her. Or
Sure.
Your actual bills have to go out first, and then after those are sent out in June, we can anticipate to send out preliminary bills for fiscal 15 in June sometime too. So that'll generate a little more money, but until we get a tax rate set, nothing can go out.
Okay, even if it, without the overrides, do you know the dollar amount that we get normally on a quarter?
How much is being billed out? No, we don't know anything until I know what the rates are gonna be, what's coming in.
Not even an anticipated.
I wouldn't wanna say.
I can't see it covering all of that.
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly here, that the rate would have gone down to $14.12, I think.
That's what it is right now in 13.
Correct. Because the debt for the senior center has been discharged, so it brought the rate down since it was above the tax cap. But 1, and perhaps 2 overrides will then be required to be added. And the override from the fall, I think, netted out to $1.14. So take $14.12, add $1.14. That would be the bottom level for fiscal 14. And if you're going to have an override, that override would add, I think I figured it out to 94 cents, 93.5 cents on top of the $1.14 added to $14.12. Pardon?
I'm not concerned with the rate. I mean, I know it's going to
She's
go up.
concerned revenue coming in.
Yeah, how much total revenue for taxes are they expecting for a quarterly billing?
They can't do that at once.
Well, half of the taxes due. Remember, the first bills that you had, the first 2 quarters were estimates. And they're estimates based on the prior year,
Yeah. What was the revenue rate? 14.12.
1412. So 2 things have to happen. The adjustment has to take place, and then the total has to be sent out. So in rough numbers, half of the town's budget was billed out in the estimated bills. And so the other half, I would guess, take what you get for the first 2 bills, double it, and then add an increment based on whether or not we have a second override.
Thank you. Thank you, Luann. Yes.
How do we take care of the difference between F13 and F14 in the amount added on for debt exclusion. Because the amount added on for debt exclusion proposed for F14 is considerably more than what it was for F13. So that's a significant increase, which was reflected when I stood up in town meeting from the printout from the Department of Revenue. How is that taken care of in the tax rate?
You're referring there to what we would call ballot question number 2? This was the ballot question for the feasibility study schematic
Oh,
design?
no, not at all.
Oh.
I had a printout that I received from the Assessors Department that showed the F13 tax rate and how they arrived at it. In other words, they took the previous year, added growth, 2.5%.
Right.
Then they added
Yes.
what was voted for debt exclusions. I think it was a $610,000 approximately.
Yes.
In F13, and F14,
Yes.
on the printout sheet proposed, and a number that was included in the math when they arrived at the 505,000, there was an increase in the debt that was going to be raised in the tax rate
Yes.
by a significant amount. It doesn't seem to have been reflected.
The override in the fall of last year, calendar 13, adds $1.14 onto the rate. However, that rate is a lower rate because the debt exclusion for the senior center was discharged, and that
Yeah.
came off the tax rate.
Oh, that was the debt exclusions for F12.
Yes.
And there was also debt exclusion for the ICE.
Now, if you look at the tax rates, the tax rate was higher at 12 than it was.
What was it at 12?
Yeah, it was higher, and then it went down to $14.12.
I was just comparing the levy limit for F13 with the levy limit.
Well, the levy limit.
Right.
Yeah.
For F13 with the levy limit for F14 based on the printout from the Department of Revenue. The difference in the levy limit is $1,109,000. That would seem to me to result in approximately a $2 increase in the
Yes.
tax rate.
That's another way of saying what I guess we're just discussing here, that there's going to be added $1.14, and if the override that's proposed in this warrant carries, it'll be 93.5 cents, 94 cents.
But when
So it's about $2.
No, that's not what he's saying.
when's the 1,110,000?
That's not what he's saying.
How much would that affect the tax rate?
There's a difference.
The 1 million plus that you're talking about, as I understand it, consists of the 600,000 plus that was voted in the fall, plus 505.
Oh, no.
No?
I don't think so. Not on the sheet. The 620,000 override was on the sheet, but the 505 is not on that sheet.
No, it's not, no.
So that has to be added on. So if you take a $1.1 million increase in the levy limit, and now we're gonna add 505, now you're up to 1.6. How much would that affect the tax rate?
I have to think that, I'm not aware that we have a 1.1 million increase in the levy limit prior to. My understanding is the 620,000 that was voted in the fall, mostly for the schools, plus the 505 that's proposed, would give us a total increase in fiscal 14 of $1,025,000. And since the formula is $1 on the tax rate for, was it $540,000? $1 on the $540,000 in increase represents a dollar on the tax rate. You're talking about a little over $2 on the tax rate.
I hope you're right, sir, and I would appreciate it if you would get the printout from the Department of Revenue for F13 and F14 to make sure that 505,000
Okay.
is included in that printout.
Now, I don't have that. What are you talking about, tax recap?
She was looking on the DE1 forms.
Oh, the DE1, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you lend any?
Yeah, I can print you some.
No, I mean, can
he was
you-
just questioning, because the debt went up in
Yeah.
14
That's right.
from 13, and
That was
really.
added on.
Yeah, it was already added on, and that's what he's questioning.
Yeah, it's
why
over
it went
200,
up.
it's around $250,000, I believe, added on.
Okay, well, I'll look at that. I'm a little hazy on the past here.
I wish I threw away after the town meeting, to tell you the truth.
I think what we can do is maybe look into that before our next meeting, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
because it's just that in my mind, it is not that I'm against the 505. The town needs it.
Oh, you want to make sure it's right,
There's
yeah.
no question. I just think that the taxpayers of the community has to have a fairly, I know not exact, but a fairly idea how this is totally going to affect the tax rate.
Right, because I believe.
Because it's going to affect all of us prior to July 1.
Right, because I believe what we said at the town meeting was approximately 16, 20, $2 on the tax rate. So if it's
Yeah.
going to be something substantially different than that, obviously we would want to
That's
get
why
that
it's
information
going to
out.
be difficult for the taxpayers of the town
Right.
not to know when they go into the, ahead of time, what there's going to be from the school side
Right.
in this debt exclusion. Boy, it's going to be tough for the people to vote for the unknown.
Right, the question I have is, if we do this rollover and we've now got $3 million in this tax anticipation note, are we confident that the tax bills we send out on May 13th, which are going to then be due in 30 days, which would be June 15th, are we confident that we will collect enough to cover that $3 million? And if not, what's the ramifications?
I asked the question, and the accountant seems to think
that's
that
what you were
we will
asking.
be very
And
close.
which
And
I
the other,
asked.
the other
Yeah,
point that he
Ken said
made
that.
was, we should send out estimated tax bills for 15, because there are some people who like to pay early, and they would be money in the door before the end of the fiscal year. It would accrue in fiscal 15, but it's cash to use in current year.
And you can pay ahead of time. People do pay ahead of time. I paid for my last quarter and I'll make another payment before May, just so that I'm not behind the 8 ball when I finally do get a tax bill. So you have that option.
Are there any other questions or comments on the tax rate before we move on?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Doesn't this really kind of put the importance in going the tax title route that we talked about with collecting some of these different taxes rather than just talking about the last year?
Oh, right.
I mean, let's just do it. We got 700,000 out there, and we can collect 300 of it, okay? Get the 300.
Kirk, this is the, as soon as we get by this tonight, number one priority, and Kate is working, we have to update the lien information that we have to include any payments, partial payments that have been made. As soon as she's finished with that folder that she has, we're ready to go.
Put it out, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely something that we're not just kind of sitting on. It's
No,
it's
we're
just-
not.
I know,
Yeah.
the can's been kicked for like a year.
Oh, right.
It seems like it's finally
It's going to
Come
happen.
due,
going down the
yeah.
road, yeah. Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to, which Doug alluded to earlier, was a discussion of the hiring freeze and the need for additional help in town offices. Did you request this? Is this your request?
No.
Oh, okay.
I requested it from the last meeting, but I mean, again, I would say again that you all definitely need help, but based on, again, when we got this huge email today that the DOR is recommending that we do status quo, so we kind of have to keep it as it is. If the override doesn't pass, if it does, then I think that there's some other discussions that we can have. I feel badly that you're all, you're alone, Mr. Mayo needs somebody. I mean, I think that a lot of people recognize exactly where you are. I mean, you know that I do. I'm sure that we all do. But at this moment, I think they're saying we can't do it, so.
And I would say basically for two reasons. One, I think that it sets a bad precedent if we move on to hire anybody before we may be turning around to lay them off plus more, in a couple of months. So I think that it would set a bad precedent to kind of bring anyone on, not knowing if even the employees we have now are going to have jobs in a couple months. And also, the last time I counted, I know that there's a pretty significant shortfall. I think 4 or 5 at least full-time employees. Across the board, the town is down. I know that Chief Whitaker has a spot open. I know Alan does. I know that the Board of Selectmen's office does. The Assessor's office does.
Yeah.
So we know that there are many positions that need to be filled, and we are not. And if any department head or anybody would like to, town employees would like to speak to that, I'd be more than happy to let you, to let you speak and hear what you have to say regarding those issues. But as both the information that we received from the DOR, and if I'm exaggerating, then Bob can kind of correct me here, but we are kind of flying on a wing and a prayer to stay in the good graces of the DOR and kind of do everything that they want us to do to avoid state intervention. I know that, and I've heard this before, and I alluded to this slightly at the town meeting, so I apologize for repeating it again, but I want to. I have heard from a lot of people who I know well and respect, that have said, oh, maybe the state coming in is a good idea, because we can finally get this cleared up and that cleared up. However, what happens is they don't send a team of accountants to us that suddenly fix all of their problems. Every decision that involves finances, whether it's an overseer or a control board, would have to be approved by them. There's only 3 towns and cities in the whole Commonwealth out of however 300 and however many that are in this position. So it really makes it very difficult to attract quality employees. Home values can go down as well. And as it was explained to me, the first step is really a ton of reports. So if the state's going to give us any money, we're still going to have to make hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cuts, and then they're going to be sending the new accountant and treasurer and town administrator emails every week saying we want weekly updates of every penny, where it's going. It adds hours, dozens and dozens of hours worth of work. So that's kind of what the first step of state intervention is give us a load of reports and a ton of reports that just adds to the amount of work that our short-staffed employees already have to do. So while I know that it may appear that, if the state comes in, they can fix everything, that's not, they don't give us any money that we don't have to pay back, and they don't send us a team of accountants to fix any of our problems. We ultimately still have to do the work ourselves, and it increases the burden on our current employees, but.
If I could comment,
Sure.
I know I have lots of friends in Springfield, particularly those in the city government where I served. And as Jerry Perry pointed out to me today, no town has ever been put under a control board. And he said, I would advise anybody in your town who thinks it's attractive to call up some folks in Springfield. He said, you'll find almost to a person that they're very unhappy with that result. The control board comes in, they brush aside the mayor, they brush aside the city council, they would brush aside the board of selectmen, brush aside the town administrator, and everybody else, and basically they become semi-dictators as to what will and will not be done in the town. And they cut back severely and sometimes eliminate some of the, if I choose the right word here, I will say non-essential services, but the services that we can do without. And they do protect public safety, although there's some trimming there. But other than police and fire and dispatch, everything else is on the table. And I think there'd be a lot of disappointment in terms of what kind of services the town would have. We already have a situation where Memorial Day preparations are going to lag way behind because Alan is down 2 seasonal people and 1 regular staff person. Wait do you see what happens if the state comes in. They are under no obligation to listen to anyone in the town, and they will act with dispatch to fix the financial problems as quickly as possible, and that includes draconian cuts to services. So I don't know, it may seem superficially attractive, but if it happens, it won't be attractive. And I have no doubt that every person in the community will feel some effects, not only on services, but as Ken pointed out, it will have an effect upon property values because the reputation will spread. It'll be in the Globe, and it'll spread statewide, and there'll be a number of people who probably say, I'm not going to move to that town or live in that town because of all these problems.
You lose your democratic rights at the local level. And I was quoted in the paper, and I was not exaggerating, that the first things that were suggested to me were that in towns in similar situations, non-essential, I think he called them cultural departments, that he said, shut your library, get rid of your council on aging, and stop all your park maintenance. Those were the things right off the top. And if anyone shouldn't have their services cut, personally, I think it's seniors in the council on aging, because many of our seniors have paid taxes much longer than I have, obviously, and many of us have. So those kinds of things I think we should try to preserve at all costs. But is there any other comment about the hiring freeze or the need for additional help in town offices? Okay. If not, the next thing that is on, I assumed that we should do this because we did this when Ms. Wilder resigned, but I will, so I assume it's the correct thing to do. So I will read into the record the resignation of the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Jeff Bennett, and then we can vote on the resignation. It's dated March 17th, 2014, Board of Selectmen, 690 Patriots Road, Templeton, Mass. 01468. To the Board of Selectmen, I hereby resign my seat on the Board of Selectmen, effective immediately. Regards, Jeffrey P. Bennett. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Jeff Bennett to the Board of Selectmen?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any comment or discussion?
Has anyone contacted him?
I haven't heard anything.
I've tried to call him, and never returned my calls.
I know we had email correspondences a week leading up to this, but I did not know this was happening.
Okay, well, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I was just, the situation we're in now, going for an override, we need every single person that we can. So I think before we accept his resignation, someone should make an outreach to him, because we're gonna need everybody.
Yeah, so nobody's actually talked to him, that's probably not a bad idea. Somebody try
To reach out to him, okay. Can you try to, or would it be the most appropriate for you to, Bob, to try to send him an email and see if there's any response?
Certainly. I can convey the sense of the board.
Okay. So I'll take a vote since we had a first and a second. Julie?
No.
Doug?
No.
Diane?
Yes.
I would vote yes too, just because we have this, but my understanding is that if it's a tie, then no action is taken. So if you want to go ahead and contact him and see.
Okay.
My thought just being if this had been like yesterday, then I would understand, but just because it has been 2 weeks, but okay. So we will add that to the agenda again for next week. Okay. The next item that we have is to discuss the dispatch regionalization status, and I'll do this quickly, sorry. I'll do this quickly. There was a lot of, on Facebook, a lot of concern. The day before I left the country for a week, was the same day that Mr. Bennett had resigned. So there was a lot of confusion, discussion about this, the regional dispatch with Phillipston and Gardner. So what had happened is at least myself, and I believe Diane, we didn't know about the meeting. We were not notified in any official capacity of that joint meeting. So we kind of heard about it on Facebook, someone telling us, well, at least I'll speak for myself, someone telling me that, hey, this meeting is scheduled, it's posted, do you know anything about this? I had absolutely no information about it. So that being the case, I said that to people, and it led to about 150 comment discussion back and forth in which the mayor of Gardner was involved, that kind of And I received emails from the mayor while I was away that kind of wanted to, because it ended up turning into kind of a Gardner bashing session. They just want our money and blah, 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 blah. So the mayor wanted, and I was going to put this on the agenda anyway, but the mayor of Gardner wanted me to convey as well that, as some of you know, the regionalization was discussed in a feasibility study, probably more than a year ago or so. The former chairman of the board had approached the mayor to see if that was still a viable option recently. It was brought up at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I know that we took no vote on it. No motion was made to move that forward. After that time, there were meetings with the Mayor of Gardner and the Phillipston Select Board. They apparently, at least, I won't speak for Phillipston, but from what the mayor told me, they were under the impression that kind of the Board of Selectmen was on board with this. And I know that we did not take a vote on it, and I had no information whatsoever, which is one of the reasons the meeting was canceled, is because we didn't have any information whatsoever to share. So as it stands now, given kind of what happened and the board's, because when this previously had come up for a vote by the previous Board of Selectmen, it was voted down. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, the mayor and the Phillipston Select Board had the impression that Templeton was on board with this and moving forward with this. So that meeting was called, joint meeting with Phillipston apparently, to vote on this regionalization plan and that we really didn't have any information about since Jeff Bennett was the only one that had any information on this. So he wanted me to convey that Gardner was not trying to steal our money, that he was approached by the chairman of the board, and that's why things moved along. He has since withdrawn that regionalization. He is not interested in moving forward with the regionalization with Templeton, kind of given the fact that he thought that we were on board and we weren't. Or at least there was no vote ever taken that if we were on board or not. So that is the current status of the regionalization. So as far as I am aware, I don't see this coming up as an issue, at least this particular regionalization agreement, based on my discussions with the mayor of Gardner. If anybody on the board would like to vote to have the mayor come and speak to us, I'm sure that he would be amenable to that, but I did not want to invite him without, because obviously I'm just a selectman, I'm not the board. So anyone, if the majority of the board would like me to invite the mayor or his assistant or someone from Gardner or Phillipston to come and discuss the situation, that's fine. If you just want to drop it and move on, that is fine with me as well, but I just wanted to kind of explain what had happened regarding that issue and why you may not see it pop up again as a joint meeting with Phillipston anytime soon. Okay, the next issue we have on the agenda is to discuss 252 Baldwinville Road.
Yeah, I asked for this last week because I had some community members, express to me that they know of a company interested in, potentially purchasing that building. And I know what Bob had said, that there was somebody interested in renting the building. I don't really think that we should even consider taking on the role of a landlord. I mean, we have enough irons in the fire now, and that there's just a lot of work involved with being a landlord. So I just really brought it up to discussing, since we have, a potential interested party, should we put it back out to bid,
I had a visit today from, maybe it's the same person who is interested in purchasing the building. So, told him we would be discussing this tonight. If it's the wish of the board, we can get a bid document out there very quickly.
Right, because we've already had the document, we just,
Right.
I'll make a motion that we put 252 Baldwin Road out to bid.
Second.
I was under the impression it was already out to bid.
We didn't have any bids. Or any that were acceptable, I guess. I completely agree with Doug with everything he said. I think that being a landlord is the last thing that Templeton needs right now. Were there any, before we vote, were there any other comments, questions, or concerns before we put this back out to bid?
I believe in the last time we went out to bid, we had it set at like a $300,000 minimum. Do we still believe that's a reasonable limit?
That's why we didn't get bids last time.
Yeah.
What was the minimum? I'm sorry.
300,000.
What do we pay for it? Rejecting bids.
Right,
Seems
yeah, I mean, I
awfully
can't
high.
imagine anybody,
Like, what do we pay for it, 7?
No, we paid
We
four.
paid
Oh, 4, okay.
Yeah.
$399,970.
Not that she knows, but yeah.
99.
Yeah, right. We always, right, correct me if I'm incorrect, but we always put that we reserve the right to reject all bids, so we could set it at $5, and if something, I mean, not that we should, but if something came in too low, we could just say no.
Then let's not go with the minimum.
Yeah, just put it out there.
Just have the
Let's not
phrase
go with the
that
minimum, because we can always
reserve the
reject
right
it if it's not enough.
Right.
So it's
That
better.
question was asked today.
Mm.
The individual interested in purchasing wanted to know if there would be a minimum bid requirement. So the answer is no. That's,
We can confirm that with a vote if we want to.
Do you want me to amend my motion?
Sure.
To vote yet? I'll amend my motion then.
Oh, sure.
There will be no minimum bid, and that we reserve the right to reject any and all bids.
And I'll amend my second. Yeah, yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
if I may, I have one question. If we sell it, say bid come in and say 300,000, what are we gonna be left owing, on the building that we still have to pay for? Anybody know that question?
I think Julie might.
I think, what if we made 2 payments on it now?
One payment.
One payment.
Well, one payment and $20,000. So we're in about 175 into that now. Out of the 700, so we're talking 525, we're in there now, somewhere in there.
So that's what we still owe,
Yeah,
about $525.
somewhere, ballpark of $500,000 plus or minus.
So we will obviously be taking a loss on the, and also just to let everyone know, that money, we can't use that money. It has to be certified as free cash next year. So if we do sell it right away, it still does not lessen our problems this year. But it's again, and just like the tax titles, it's a one-time source of revenue that we can use.
And we're gonna take a loss on the building. There's no way we're gonna get 700,000 back to recoup what was put into it as far as engineering and all the plans and the cost of the building. What it will do is put it back on the tax rolls. And that to me is a positive. It is prime location. The building itself isn't wonderful, but it is a prime location. So if we can get it back on the tax rolls, that's a bonus.
I completely agree. Yes.
On the positive side, the 21E is already done. Whoever's buying it could make that as a requirement. It's already done, so we're one step there. So that would be a cost, no matter what, we would have to incur. That's already been paid as part of the amount of money that was owed. There was other costs involved besides the building. There was a number of injuries.